All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Myths and Magic of the MSN Practicum. This webinar is the first of what we intend to be a monthly series hosted by Aspen's Alumni and Career Services. This is a brand new department as of this summer. My name is Allie, and I'm your Alumni and Career Services Specialist. Our webinar topics will range from career development things to things that are more curriculum related and geared towards current students, like today's presentation is. Along with regular webinars, our department offers resources for job searching and career advancement, and you can see upcoming events and learn more on our webpage here. This webinar is being recorded, and it will be uploaded to Aspen's YouTube channel where you can easily refer back to it, and where you can also find a range of other useful videos, including an overview of Project Concert, which is the software you'll use to log hours during your practicum course. Both of these websites are linked in the Zoom meeting chat. I'll link it again in case of anyone joining later. Please be sure to keep your microphone muted during the presentation. We'll be taking questions at the end, so at that point, I'll invite you to unmute and ask any questions you may have. However, since we have such a small group today, if Nina feels otherwise and would like people to participate during, I'll leave that up to her. With that, I'm excited to introduce the speaker for this presentation. Dr. Nina Beeman is the Dean Emeritus of the School of Nursing and Health Sciences and the Graduate Partnership Liaison at Aspen. She's been in academia for over 30 years now, with experience teaching on the ground and online. She's a certified nurse educator and is board certified in psychiatric mental health nursing, medical assisting, and ambulatory women's health nursing. We are really lucky to have her here today to talk about the MSN Practicum, which is a topic that can potentially cause some stress for our MSN students. So fortunately, Dr. Beeman is here to go over the process, maybe clear up some common misconceptions, and get you excited about looking ahead to your practicum. Dr. Beeman, thank you so much. I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen and give you the floor.
Okay, so I guess I say yes. All right, hopefully you're seeing my slides. Great. Yes?
We can
All
see.
right, so thank you all for coming. I decided to call this Myths and Magic of the MSN Practicum because I have to share with you my own personal experience. When I was a student, don't you hate it when the old people say that? But when I was a student at Aspen, I was in the administration track. And so there were 2 practica in the administration track. And I was so scared. So when Allie asked if I would do this, I said, oh, there were so many myths and my mind went in so many directions, but it really was magical. So I said, let's call it Myths and Magic. So that's what we're going to call it. So my agenda, of course, is to introduce myself, do the land acknowledgement. As Louise knows, that's very important to me, as well as to people I acknowledge. We're going to address some myths, share some magic, and have some final takeaways. So if you don't already know me, I love mentoring. I love mentoring students. I love mentoring faculty. Anyone who'll listen to me, I love mentoring. So they have given me a brand new position. Actually, I believe this is my 2nd week in this position as a graduate partnership liaison. But I myself did 2 practica here at Aspen because I was in the administration track and I survived. I even earned the degree, figure that. So I and others like me will coach you through the practicum because we have been through it too, and we know what it's like and we know what we need to do. But let me begin with the land acknowledgement. I do like to honor the tribe, the Monacan tribe, which is the tribe from which I am broadcasting. This was their land. This is their land. And I'm honored that they will let me live here and broadcast from here. But I do also like this infographic, if you like, that talks about how we may have different views. I honor yours. I hope you'll honor mine. And really the practicum is sitting in a circle together and learning from each other. I learn from my students. Hopefully they learn from me, but we work together. And that is the beauty of the practicum. So first of all, I want to start out and simplify it. The practicum is only doing 3 things. you create, you get feedback, and you revise. Now, one of the things that you do a lot in grad school is you read a lot of research and you read a lot of doctoral projects. And so you think, oh, wow, I have to do that. I have to prove a hypothesis or a null hypothesis. I have to answer a PICO question, whatever that is. I have to do original research with experimental and control groups. Folks, that's doctorate. You don't have to do that in the MSN. You'll be well equipped to do that at the end of your MSN, but you don't have to do that in this degree. All you have to do is create something. There's been all this learning and an awful lot of writing, right? But now you actually get to pick something you're passionate about. You pick it, by the way. The instructor doesn't. You do. You pick your passion and you create something. Okay, what are you talking about, Dr. Bean? What thing? Well, I see a lot of PowerPoints. I see a lot of bulletin boards. I see a lot of poster boards, handouts. QR codes are getting very popular. You can do a change in a process, maybe where you work. You can suggest legislation. There's unlimited things that you can do, because what you're going to do is think of a problem, usually in your local area, that you want to try to solve, at least in your little local area, by filling a gap in knowledge or changing a process. And that's all it is. So you create some kind of project that will fill a gap in knowledge or change a process. Then you get a bunch of people to give you feedback. Now, feedback doesn't have to be a really complicated and complex instrument. It can be one question. Would you look this over and tell me how it could be improved? How can this be improved? Or what are 3 strengths and 3 weaknesses? Or how could this be better? Just get some feedback, because you'll need that in your capstone. But just get some people that you trust. Again, you don't have to worry about their race or their gender or if they represent anything, because this isn't original research. You get people who you trust, who will give you some good feedback, and you revise. Create, feedback, revise. That's all you have to do. That is your practicum. So I shout out to my granddaughter who was going nuts one day. So I use this picture a lot about going nuts, the stuff that we fear, right? The myths. And I was telling Allie before you all came in, I quit my job, and I with 5 kids. I was like, oh my gosh, I'll never get all this done. I did not need to, by the way. So don't quit your job. Okay. Because I was just like overwhelmed with the time involved. Now, in the administrative track, it's broken into 2 courses, but in the other tracks, it's 1 course. And it seemed like a lot of time. So let me explain to you Carnegie credits, which goes way back to the philosophy that if we were an on-ground institution, we would require you to sit in a seat for 3 hours times 16 weeks. And you would be awarded 3 credits for just doing that, basically. But in distance ed, it's not time in class, which is probably one of the reasons you came to Aspen, because it wasn't synchronous. You didn't have to put in time, so to speak. Instead, we have to prove to our accreditors that you did 135 hours of work to get 3 credit hours. You're going, wait a minute, none of these are 135. Yeah, because some of what you're doing are discussion postings and a few other minor things that you do. But instead of doing what you normally do, which is 135 hours of work, and how do we know? Because we count up the number of words that you write, the number of pages that you read, the number of slides that you look at, the number of websites. We really do that. Okay, we have to do that this is my old job, by the way, for the accreditors, is to make sure that you've done an awful lot of work. And you've always wondered, why do I have to do X amount of words and all that? That is why, to earn those 3 college credits. Well, so to earn the 3 college credits for the practicum course, you get to decide how you spend 120 of those 135 hours. You decide. That's it, folks. You pick the thing you're passionate about. You decide what you're going to create. You decide who's going to review it, and you decide how it's going to be revised. And you keep track. And Allie just referred to Project Concert. We even give you a platform where you can keep track of your hours. But unlike your pre-licensure, where you had to be connected to a licensed nurse because you weren't a licensed nurse, right? You don't have to be with 120 hours. You're a licensed nurse. You are going to be working on your project. And if you're like me, you go into the library and you go down a rabbit hole researching and you look up and it's 8 hours later, you get credit for all of that. So you that 120 hours because projects like this actually do take about 120 hours. And that's spread out over 8 weeks with the possibility of an extension time. But almost nobody has trouble getting those hours in because they aren't the rigid hours that you had in pre-licensure where you had to be with somebody and you had to schedule certain time periods and whatever. It's really sort of up to you when those hours occur. So you might say, "Ah, I can't possibly find a preceptor." And you might be surprised. Often you're thinking, oh, well, it has to be where I work. Well, it could be where you work, but it doesn't have to be where you work. It could be some MSN nurse that you know of, someone that's gone to Aspen before. And I actually was in a meeting with a student the other day and up popped her preceptor. It was the first week and I had her in a class before and she had so loved being in, Aspen being in a practicum that she volunteered to be somebody's preceptor. We have a list of wonderful alumni. I'm sure Allie does too. But the Office of Field Experience has lists of alumni that would be happy to be your preceptor. Some of the faculty will even precept you. So try to find somebody locally because I will tell you what I didn't tell you. The two places that I did my practica both offered me jobs. So it could be a way of getting a job if if you're careful about what facility you go to for your practicum. And what I did was impress my preceptors, right? And so maybe select your preceptor locally so that you can get yourself a better job. But if it's absolutely impossible, know that the Office of Field Experience, OFE, at aspen.edu will work with you. So for those of you that are public health, forensics, or education, there is an accreditation requirement that you have direct patient care hours. Now, again, it is not pre-licensure. You don't have to stick tubes in them. You don't have to take their vitals. Ideally, your patient care experience would be related to your project, but it doesn't have to be. So I'm just going to throw some ideas out. For public health, that is so easy. Hook up with your local public health department. They might connect you with the Medical Reserve Corps that does an awful lot of interesting things and does a lot of volunteer work and would give you oodles of direct patient care because the public is your patient. Okay. So you could go to a assisted living facility and I remember when my mother was living in an assisted living, she loved it if anybody came by and did any kind of health education or anything like that. Forensics is fun. You don't even have to be alive. Okay. You could be, and I do have students who do ride alongs with law enforcement officers. They go to the medical examiner's office, in which case the patients are a little dead, but it works. And in many cases, they might go to an assisted living facility and teach about scams. Because there's a lot of elderly people that are getting scammed out of their money. And that's an easy way to get some hours there. Education is where it gets tricky because our students say, oh, I want to teach a pharmacology course. No can do. If you teach a pharmacology course, you are earning a master's degree in education and you are doing student teaching. And so that's all the reason why the accreditors want you to spend some hours with direct patient care. So how can you teach students about direct patient care if you haven't had a recent experience? So either arrange to do some clinicals or some of the other things that I just suggested also count as direct patient care. When you go into your project concert, you're going to keep track of those hours so that you have at least 20 of your 120. It's not additional, but it's 20 of the 120. Now, for those of you that are administrative or informatics, the accreditor does not consider those to need direct patient care because often those two specialties, you aren't patient facing. So it's not required in those. So do you have to be with the preceptor for 120 hours? The preceptors are relieved to know, no, you are a licensed nurse. You practice on your own license. And so many of these hours are honestly, you doing the same stuff you've always been doing, going to the library, researching, looking up stuff, writing, creating, revising, talking to people. But you do not have to be with the preceptor. You obviously would want to check in with the preceptor and get their wisdom, and they do sign off on your sort of time log in weeks 4 and 8. You have to write a thesis. You don't write a thesis in the practicum. You write it in the capstone. But it is not a new practicum. It is writing the thesis about your practicum. So we set up your practicum so that it can easily fit into your capstone thesis. The capstone thesis, by the way, is written in sections. And so you write a section and your instructor will give you feedback, and then another section, and finally the big money, the big points are due at the end. And by that time, you've gotten a lot of feedback from your instructor. And so you tend to do quite well on that because you've had a lot of editing along the way with your instructor. And you also not only have a written thesis, but you'll have a set of slides that you could present at a professional conference, for example. So, well, I need to quit my job. Please don't. I was sort of foolish, because it just seemed like so much time, but it isn't. It's spread out over 8 weeks. And it's really a lot of time when you're at home with your kids, your family anyway, because a lot of it is researching in the library. The project will not be assigned with you. I've been to a lot of conferences that say, well, we just keep it simple. We just assign done here to our students, No, we do not do that. We ask you what your passion is and absolutely, let you follow your passion. We craft the practicum around your own passion, your own preferences. And again, you can choose the media that you prefer. If you don't like making QR codes, it can be a PowerPoint. So what's the magic? Here's the magic of it. You get to pick your passion. This is a creative course. So many of the courses are, okay, read, write an essay, create this, that, but this is the one where you actually get to create an intervention that could then go on and become a doctoral project. You get to choose your reviewers. Now, obviously, you can go to your mom and mom can say, really good job. I love you. Hugs. Please come over for dinner on Sunday. But that is not going to be useful in your capstone thesis. Okay. Please go to people who are critical. They may not be your best friends, but in this particular case, if they will give you objective criticisms, that's really what you want. And go to people outside of your usual realm. Go to non-nurses and go to tribal leaders, right, Louise? Go to people who might give you an input you don't usually get. Because that will make your project all the more rich if you go to people who are not just like you or don't think just like you, because then they're going to bring a new look into your project. So you can use a simple survey. People overcomplicate it and always say to the students, just ask them, how can this be better? I mean, just keep the simple, really, survey really simple. People don't like long surveys. I get an email probably once a day. This survey will only take you 45 minutes. Delete. I don't have 45 minutes. You can't pay me what I'm worth for 45 minutes. If it's that long, I'm not going to do it. But particularly if it's an MSN student, and they say it's just one question. Oh, okay, I got time. I can do this. I can give them some good feedback. You will own the project concert account that Allie was referring to. And that means that it lives on beyond the course. So store stuff there, store everything you make, the iterations of your project and the survey, and then obviously your final thesis, because you may say after the MSN, I'm exhausted. I don't want to go on to my doctorate, but you might. And any hours that you do in your MSN that are signed off by your preceptor and your instructor count towards your doctorate, but you will have stored them in project concert. So Hopefully you'll come back to us for your doctorate, but no matter where you go, you'll be able to say, these are the hours I did, and this is what I did during them. And so you'll get credit for them because they're stored in your project concert. So remember that you're not writing a doctorate. And so, really, if you got nothing out of this tonight, you are going to create something, you're going to get some feedback, and you're going to revise. You are not proving correlations or, doing any kind of number crunching or anything like that. You can use your own locality. Both of my other degrees that I got elsewhere, I had thousands of dollars that I paid to go to residencies where I listened to people pontificate about their greatness. But all I could think about is, oh, I spent thousands of dollars on this residency and really got nothing out of it. We don't do that kind of residency. We let you use your own locality. We let you be asynchronous, and that saves you an awful lot of money. You may be fearing the proctored exam. I know that students fear the proctored exam because we're all still 30 years later. I'm going through NCLEX, post NCLEX, trauma. But it's nothing like NCLEX. It's not select all that apply. I'm going to tell you what it is. It is the AACN Essentials. And you're going, huh, what are those? You will know what they are because in the practicum, every week we will discuss the AACN Essentials until you really know them in week 7. And then it'll be you and your instructor in a Zoom room. And your instructor will ask you, how did your project meet the AACN essentials? Or it could be a bongo room. And I actually put it up so that the students don't even have to memorize it. It's up there in the bongo room. And I say, hey, how did your project meet the essentials? And it will. You know why? Because I set that up in week 1. I make sure that the project meets the essentials. So in week 7, the student simply has to tell me how the project met the essentials. And so 7 sentences, you're done, or 9 sentences, you're done. Okay. So, the proctored exam is not something to really sweat about. You will know the essentials, and you will be able to easily describe how your project met them. But when you get through your capstone, it is a publishable document. So you can be very proud of it and share it with people, etc. And actually, that's sort of the myths and the magic that I thought of. But more importantly, what are the myths and magics and fears and anxieties that you all have? You could probably just go off your mic because I don't think there's that many here.
Please do feel free if anyone has questions. Thank you so much, Nina. That was a really excellent presentation.
All right, I'll speak up. So I work in public health. I'm not a clinical nurse. I actually just got a job in quality improvement. So why am I going after an MSN in forensics? I don't know.
Because we all love forensics, don't we?
We do, because I don't know if you remember, I worked at the office of the medical examiner for a couple of years.
There you go.
Already spoken
we'll
to
make
one of
it work.
I've already
I'm
spoken to
thinking QI, you might want to do a change in process.
I have my project idea. ER nurses don't know what the MAE office knows or what they want. They don't know how
There's your
to
knowledge gap.
recognize the case. They don't know what to do when it's a case. So I've already started research. I spoke to the pathologist, blah, blah. My question is,
Yeah.
did I hear you right that I don't have to go follow a forensic nurse? I can go down to the office of the medical examiner or
You
ride
could.
along
You
with
would need an MSN nurse or above, could be a doctorate nurse, to be your preceptor. But boy, do I have a lot of alumni and if you can't find somebody locally, I've got alumni and although I do have some people locally, alumni and educators would be your preceptor, but then your facility could be the ME's office. Yes.
Got it. That is amazing.
I know, aren't we amazing? We're just amazing.
Because I already talked to the ME's office and they don't employ nurses or NPs or anything. I thought, well,
that's the rub. And that's why your preceptor would have to qualify.
Right.
But the facility, that preceptor would not have to work at that facility.
Perfect. And that's 120 hours
For
at
you,
the
for forensics,
facility
yes. It's 120 hours.
with a patient.
No, it's even better. It's 120 hours on the project, 20 of which have to be patient facing. So, I mean,
I want to
20
do
or
more than
more,
20.
20 or more could be at the ME's office. But I can tell you, all this research you're doing now, you're supposed to be doing it then and getting credit for it then.
Well, I have to get in. I'm not doing a whole ton, but I have to prepare for, hey, I want to come see you in a year. So this is what my project is wanting to be about.
That's fine. I know you. You'll be doing much more than you need to. So
Well,
that's
hopefully
fine.
not as much as last time.
But for the rest of the people who are listening, they might do 20 hours. You know, if the ME only lets them come 20 hours, fine. That's all that is necessary. And the other could be a lot of researching and writing and creating and talking to people and, being culturally sensitive and, that kind of thing would fill up the other hours. It can be
Awesome.
more than 20, but it has to be at least 20.
And then we just do our own documentation as far as hours. Preceptor doesn't have to sign off on our little checkbook
No, the
thing
preceptor
anymore.
signs off in week 4 and week 8.
Okay.
But it's not like a daily, again, you're a licensed nurse, it's trustworthy. So the preceptor doesn't sign in daily. I actually look, just to let you know, for my students, I look at Project Concert every morning and I just slide it over administratively. And then in weeks 4 and week 8, then the on ground, whoever the preceptor is, would verify, looking at what you've done and say, oh gosh, I can tell looking at this is definitely 75 hours, and sign off on it. So there's sort of two things. There's the instructor administratively, and then there's the preceptor that verifies it.
Right.
But it's not a daily, check-in, bing, or these are the hours I have to do or whatever. Because remember, it's not like pre-licensure. You're not with the preceptor every minute of the day. A lot of it, you're on your own, but you would demonstrate that by showing the preceptor what you had maybe done over the last week or 2 weeks or whatever. Okay.
Is there a way to figure out calendar wise when I need to do that? Am I literally just looking at the program and counting ahead?
Look at the courses that you have, and they're usually about 2 months. Again, you certainly have the privilege of taking weeks off in between. But if you don't take weeks off in between, you can just say, all right, this course ends then. 8 weeks later is this course. 8 weeks later is this course. And you should start preparing a few courses beforehand. That's a good question. Few courses before the practicum you're going to see in your coursework. It's time to start thinking about this and contacting the OFE and getting their paperwork going, because you'd hate to have to wait to get it. You cannot start the practicum course without your facility and your preceptor lined up. Now, there are some projects that don't require a facility, but that's up to the OFE to determine that. Questions? Cool. Those were good ones. Go back to final takeaways. I put a picture of me in my regalia because that's where y'all are heading. Mighty close. Can you feel it? Just the practicum and the capstone, and then the regalia and the graduation. But you create, you get feedback, and you revise. It is that simple. It's about your passion. You solve a local problem with a local mentor. You organize your time. It's not tied to your preceptor's schedule. You have the opportunity to meet virtually with your instructor to plan it on 3 occasions. You're almost graduating. So what's bad about this? This is just all good. So this is how to reach me if you have any further questions.
Thank you, Dr. Beeman. This is Sharon. I actually taught 586 administration and management practice for the first time. And in those practicums, there's 2 of them. And the first practicum, they have to get 40 hours, and the second practicum, 80 hours, for a total of 120 hours. And
that is correct.
And I had to have them change the module in the curriculum because they had 120 hours in the second practicum, which
Right.
was way too many hours than what they
Yeah,
needed.
I'm glad you got that changed because it is
Yeah.
120 total for everybody.
Yeah, so thank you
Thank
for
you for saying that.
and thank you for the myths, because in Magics, I wish all the students could see this before they take the practicum.
You can always put this YouTube in your classroom, Sharon.
Oh, that's great. Yes, I will do that. Thank you.
Once we have the recording available, I'll go ahead and send it to all the registrants. We're going to pass it around everywhere too. It'll be on the YouTube channel, but I'll make sure it's in the hands of the advisors as well so they can send it to students who call in all nervous.
I
Thank
would
you.
rather have them hear this than worry.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Beeman. Does anyone else have any further questions or comments before we say goodbye for the night? Looks like no, but you can always reach out to us if you do have any questions, or your advisor or the alumni at aspen.edu as well. Thank you so much for coming, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of your night.
Oh, Sharon's got a question.
It looks like
Oh,
applause.
no. Sorry. My
It's
bad.
fine.
Let me get my
It's
glasses
fine.
on. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.